I mean, why the hell do I even like K-pop anyway? A very good question that not only family members who think I'm a weirdo have asked, but also one that I ask myself surprisingly often. I look at my little photo card of S-Coups next to my computer, and my collection of albums, and at ATs staring down at me from their season's greeting calendar, and I think, but do I actually like this? And why? And as I thought more about it, I realised that it's not a simple list of a few reasons. I have a big long list of many reasons and factors as to how and why K-pop ended up being something so interesting to me. Although I'll get more into detail with each reason, the moral of the story is that it hit all of my interests. Some of the reasons I will discuss will be reasons I like it, and some of them will be reasons that so many people around the world like it, and each of these could probably do with its own episode at some point. But either way, I think this is a fascinating aspect of entertainment, so let's get into it. I will include a trigger warning for this episode as I do briefly discuss topics that may be triggering like self-harm, suicide, and death. Timestamps will be included in the description of the YouTube version of the podcast. Although the history of K-pop is a topic that deserves a video of its own, let's quickly go over it so we can ground ourselves on the topic. K-pop originated in South Korea in the late 1980s and early 1990s with artists like Seultaji and H.O.T, and companies like SM, JYP, and YG. The genre was based off of J-idol music, but with a few key adjustments designed to market it to the Western market and trump J-pop as such. Things like English lyrics, rock and hip-hop styles, carefully crafted performances, and marketing to a global audience worked in K-pop's favour, and helped it skyrocket to global fame, beginning in the early 2000s and accelerating in the 2010s with groups like Blackpink, Twice, EXO, SHINee, and of course, BTS. Now, K-pop is one of the biggest music industries on the planet and has a huge impact in the biggest markets in the world, like America and Japan. The growth it has experienced and the impact it has had on the world is hard to understate, especially with BTS becoming a household name in many countries. So now we understand the rough history and origins of K-pop and its massive growth into the Western market, why don't we now talk about something that has much less of an impact on the world? My personal history with K-pop. My first introduction to K-pop was the same as many Australians, the viral success of Psy's Gangnam Style. The success of Gangnam Style is one that is very sadly rooted in fat phobia and racism, but that's a topic for another day. All that matters for now is that in 2012 I learnt about Gangnam Style. At the time I had no clue it was Korean, although looking back that is definitely why I didn't understand the lyrics. I thought the chorus was saying gay man style, which is also kind of funny to think about looking back. Perhaps it was a secret criticism of how lots of Americans and even China now think of K-pop as gay. After the craze of Gangnam Style, my next encounter with K-pop was through a video on the subject by one of those semi-content farm news type channels on YouTube. Something along the lines of watchmojo.com. I don't remember the specifics of the channel, video, or groups involved, but I do remember that there was super tight editing between the scenes and lots of cool special effects. I remember thinking that it was cool and didn't understand why so many people hated K-pop so much, but that was about the extent of the thoughts on the topic that 11-year-old me had. When I was watching YouTube videos over the years, I frequently got ads for BTS-related content, like the documentary Burn the Stage. I'd heard of BTS, of course, but knew very little about them. And I was also convinced that Burn the Stage was what BTS stood for. My opinion on BTS was almost non-existent. Of course, I had heard the same propaganda as everyone else that their fans were a group of 15-year-olds, ex-Directioners who had migrated to the next coolest thing. But other than a mild dislike from Directioners stemming from my not like other girls phase, I didn't have an opinion on BTS. I did, however, continually stumble upon Suga when I searched Suga, the nickname of one of my favourite characters from the anime Haikyuu. Of course, when you search SUGA Suga, the member of the most popular group in the world right now will come up ahead of a featured character from a top 10 anime. So I knew that Suga was a member of BTS, but that's about all I knew about them. I also knew that K-pop tended to have unique fashion, which I was tangentially interested in, but clearly not enough to risk social death by becoming a K-pop fan. And a few years after that, the 2020 lockdown happened. And, browsing through YouTube, I saw a video of the most catchy K-pop songs of 2019. Being bored and on the verge of depression, I decided to watch it. And let me tell you that when I saw Subin's face in Crown, I fell in love. I had no clue who this random group TXT were. I only knew of BTS. But I liked this dude and I wanted to know more about him and his group. So I watched the music video and I liked it. Then I found out that they were from the same company as BTS. At the time, I had no clue that companies were so important in K-pop, and especially not that TXT being in the same company as BTS was so important. But I thought it was cool. I had liked DNA when it had been included in the video of catchy songs, so I listened to it and really liked it. At that point, I thought the most dangerous thing that a non-K-pop fan can think. I thought, dang, they're the most popular group in the world and I like their song. I should really give them the respect they deserve and learn their names. And if you know anything about K-pop, you know the phrase, I want to learn their names, especially in relation to BTS, is a very dangerous and slippery slope down the K-pop rabbit hole, which I definitely fell down. I think I learned BTS's names in a day or two and watched a huge number of their music videos along with the other biggest fan attractor, BTS Funny Moments videos. Run BTS, their reality show, is packed with inside jokes and stupid moments, and these compilations on YouTube tend to be both very successful and attract many new fans. I also got into TXT and, by their proximity to those two groups, ATEEZ and 17. I watched quite a bit of K-pop content and listened to a lot of music, but I wouldn't say I was anywhere near obsessed. I avoided girl groups for a bit since the higher pitched voice and less complex choreographies didn't interest me, but over time I have gained an interest in them, especially groups like aespa, Kepler and Billy. I was one of the pre-debut fans of ENHYPEN and tangentially followed Island since it had Australian trainees. And let's just say, as a fan of the Gothic, I was not disappointed when I saw their vampire concept. And so, I continued on, collecting a few albums and being invested primarily in the storylines of groups and the impending doom of BTS's military service. During my final year of high school, we went into an even deeper lockdown. By this point, I was pretty happy with my place as a fan of K-pop, and it cemented its place in my life, or at least my history, as the media that got me through those final exams. I don't mean it saved my life, I don't mean that it was the only thing I did, or that I used it to procrastinate or anything else, but every day after studying for hours and having no human interactions, I got to sit down and watch Going 17. Where a bunch of dudes I'd love to be friends with had fun, or at least I hope they did, playing stupid games for hours on end. It made my days a little brighter and happier, and when I couldn't have any human interaction, I could see others I admired interacting. And that was such a stress reliever after the pain of studying for final exams that I may or may not need to do online. And then, of course, but even more so now, I have been fascinated by K-pop's interactions with the world around it, which is exactly why so much of this series will be dedicated to specific events and why, 1,500 words into this script, I will finally begin to tell you about the many factors that make me like K-pop. Ever since I've been young, I've been a huge fan of super tight-knit, sharp-edged performances. That's why I enjoyed large musical productions so much. They are polished to the ends of the world and thus are super satisfying and interesting. They show off the skill of both the creators and the cast. And if there's one thing that K-pop wanted to do to trump J-pop and make itself go global, it was to have super high quality performances. Of course, the definition of a high quality performance in the 90s was significantly different to what we have now, but nonetheless, K-pop put in the effort to polish their performances to that extra degree. K-pop performances are highly choreographed, showing off the story, mood, and skill expression of a song and group. They are synchronized, expressive, often catchy, and often, especially if it's a boy group choreography, seem unattainable. I mean, they're called idols for a reason. Although there are many great girl group performances, like Luna's Butterfly and Billy's Ring My Bell, girl group choreographies tend to be dependent on the members wearing high heels and looking sexy more than showing their skills. Boy group choreographies tend to show off their power and passion more, and thus are more interesting to me. Boy groups, and to a lesser extent girl groups, are also known for their synchronization and stunt work. Just a quick viewing of a hardest K-pop choreographies and most dangerous K-pop choreographies video will give you a wealth of stunt work from different groups, especially BTS and second generation groups, who were foundational in the development of K-pop choreography styles as they are today. I've picked out several performances to illustrate my point here. All of them are linked in the description of the YouTube version of the podcast. First, 17's Don't Wanna Cry. 17 are known across the industry for both their insanely complex choreographies and their insane ability to execute those choreographies. They are nicknamed the Kings of Synchronization, and it shows. They were analysed by an AI which took timing and angles of limbs and movements within frames and pixels, and the 13-member group consistently gets a rating of 95.77% synchronization.
Group synchronization score is 95.77%. Absolute perfection. Flawless execution. This is the definition of copy and paste.
For context, anything over 70% is very hard to get, and the majority of groups sit in the range of the 80s. With so many people, and especially the large height difference between the shortest and tallest members, this is a borderline impossible achievement. I specifically selected Don't Wanna Cry to show you a portion of, as it has made its mark on the industry and shows off both 17's wonderful story-based choreography, courtesy largely of Hoshi, and their synchronization, also largely courtesy of Hoshi, literally adjusting their movements down to specific angles. There are clips of him telling people to move their arms up 2 degrees, and that effort pays off in their performances.
도겸이가 여기 찰 때 90도가 안 돼. 스트레칭 해야 돼가지고 여기 한 45도 맞추고 45도 가. 도겸보다 더 틀어야 될 것 같아. 3도? 그 정도? 요렇게 해야지 아무도 신경 안 써. 이런 디테일.
Hello, this is Editing Casper. I would like to apologise in advance for all of the clips of music videos and choreographies in this video. For copyright reasons, and so that the episode doesn't just become a playlist of K-pop videos, I've had to cut many parts out of them. I love almost all parts of almost all of the videos mentioned here, especially Don't Wanna Cry, and it was really hard to cut them out. So here is your warning, and I apologise in advance for the heinous sin of cutting out your biases part, and for cutting choruses from songs. I hope you can forgive me. If you don't know these songs, or even if you do, I would really encourage you to check out the links to each performance in the reference document in the description, especially for songs like Don't Wanna Cry, for which each section of choreography blends so seamlessly that I found it ridiculously hard to cut down. And, with that done, let's get on to actually having a look at Don't Wanna Cry.
울고 싶지 않아 울고 싶지 않아 열지 않은 길 이 길이 낯설다 아는 길 맞는지 내게 또 묻지요 장난치지 마 거기 있는 거 알아 대체 날 것 같아 마냥 기다리자 널 찾아가야 울고 싶지 않아 울고 싶지 않아 눈물은 많지만 돌아와 절반이 없는데 어떻게 나 너무 살아 울고 싶지 않아 울고 싶지 않아 울고 싶지 않아 눈물은 많지만 울고 싶지 않아 우리 다시 볼 때 울고 싶지 않아
I love it. Second, this specific performance of TXT's love song on Music Bank. The half-year special of Music Bank in 2021 had the theme Heroes and Villains, and while many groups were criticised for vaguely dressing up, TXT were praised for their storytelling skills and considerations of the purpose of their music. Love Song is a song about a relationship that seems wondrous on the outside and to the boys, but which on the inside is toxic, codependent, and destructive. And no hero or villain represents that thematic better than Harley Quinn. They could have dressed up as Batman and been broody, or pick up some cheap gangster costumes, but they chose to gender flip a symbol of toxic relationships and the effect they have. This was a genius decision, especially since both they and Harley Quinn seem to go a bit insane. The inclusion of the baseball bat, which they chucked around the stage and between members seamlessly, added character to their styling and performance. And of course, they looked great. Third, Billy's Ring My Bell. Their charisma and stage presence here were great. There's not much else to say, it's a super enjoyable performance and shows how hype a lot of stages can be.
Ring my bell. 필요할 때 불러 ring ring. Ring my bell. 이건 둘의 비밀 지키. Chapter 2. 너무도 멀어 보였던 것 도착한 거지. 한순간에 인사해도 다른 현실로. Just ring my bell. 필요할 때 불러 ring. 울린 소리에 번쩍 눈 뜰 때 두 번째 기회. Ring my bell. 아니면 더 reset. 그냥 다 reset. 새로운 세상 속 공기 향기롭지. Just ring my bell. 필요할 때 울린 소리에 번쩍 눈 뜰 때 모두 다 빌리. Ring my bell. My bell. 더 작은 것 같아. 다 터질 것만 같아. 아니면 더 reset. Ring my bell. 너무 기다렸어 wake me. Ring my bell. My bell. 더 잘해질 것 같아. 또 한 번 reset해.
Fourth, La Vie en Rose by IZ*ONE. IZ*ONE were one of the groups in the industry known for their amazing synchronization. They scored 95.87% on a similar synchronization algorithm to 17, and that's impressive. Their performances were expressive, iconic, and surprisingly powerful. And La Vie en Rose is the one that I picked for its impact on the industry and its legacy as one of the greatest debut songs of all time.
빨갛게 물들여 지금 이 시간. 이런 느낌은 루비보다 더 내가 느끼는 반짝임처럼 나 이끌려 나는 지금 나는 I don't wanna make it blue. 깊어진 눈빛 속에 불 던진 내 맘을 타오르게 해 나를 춤추게 해. La 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 love and rose. This is my la 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 love and rose. 눈빛 루비같이 모든 시선 eyes on me. 내가 그 누구보다 더 빛나게 빨갛게 물들일게. 나는 지금 나는 I don't wanna make it blue. 잊지 마 여기서 있는 rose. 언제나 빛날 수 있게. La 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 love and rose. 감았던 눈일까봐 달라져 모든 게 다. 아무도 모르는 새로운 세상을 봐. Oh baby. La 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 la. 전부 감을 들여. La la la
Finally, I picked ATEEZ's performance of Wonderland on Kingdom. While the survival show Kingdom allowed for larger budget performances on a huge scale, this was one of the ones that used that scale the best. Wonderland is a hard-hitting song about moving forward on one's journey, and ATEEZ used it to continue their pirate storyline. The performance is set on a pirate ship as they prepare for battle. Alternate versions of themselves give them the tools they need to defeat their enemy, a whole kraken, represented by a tentacle, that they have on stage and which one member kills before they celebrate their victory and move on to the next stage of their journey. Like, is this a K-pop performance or a fully produced musical? There was a kraken? I remember this performance made waves when it dropped, for their performance skills, their passion and power, and of course, their storyline and the kraken. It would be impossible to introduce even the bare bones of any K-pop storylines in this video, but this performance can be enjoyed even without the knowledge of the storyline. Obviously, there are hundreds and hundreds of brilliant performances by other groups and soloists, but I've only been able to show a few here. I'll put out an honourable mention to Dreamcatcher, ONEUS, Pink Fantasy, STAYC, Stray Kids, SHINee, and of course BTS, who we will discuss in a later video. This selection conveys a rough breadth of K-pop performances and what I love about them. So, with that in mind, let's move on to the next reason. As you'd know from episode 1, I'm a screenwriting kid. And of course, you don't need to be a screenwriting kid to appreciate good editing, but I feel that my education allows me to appreciate it and the effort that went into it even more. K-pop music video editing is super tight, and used primarily to show off the members and choreography, tell a story, or hype up the audience. And the ones to hype people up are some of the best ones. All I can say is that the screenwriting and editing are very sexy, and by that I mean they are very skilled. So let's again look at a selection of editing. First is Stray Kids' God's Menu. The editing of the start of the music video is chaotic, confident, and stylish, just like the group and the song. It conveys the groove and vibe of the song well, and although you wouldn't notice it from this clip, some K-pop groups have very distinctive editing styles. This song being an example of Stray Kids' choppy editing and extensive use of robotic arms and programmed camera movements. This is editor Casper again. I just wanted to clarify that a lot of the well-edited music videos in K-pop are less about having high special effects budgets or doing hard editing tricks. They are impressive because these are the kinds of editing tricks that take a ridiculous amount of planning in the pre-production and production stages. If you don't get it right then, there is little the editor can do to fix it afterwards. It's the amount of planning and attention to detail that makes so many of these music videos so impressive. This is the case for the first two music videos I will show, and to a lesser extent the third, although the third does use special effects a lot. I also wanted to write lots of commentary on the cinematography of God's Menu, but it goes by way too fast and my writing would take you away from the actual music video. So I will leave it mostly blank, all the better for you to be thoroughly hyped and thoroughly confused about how you became so hyped. I'll just say, keep an eye out for the super snazzy transitions, the wacky robot arms and programmed camera movements, and the disappearing people. Makes me very hyped and also confused. Next, we have Hot by 17. This music video is chock full of rotoscoping. I am a baby editor, so I lack the experience to make a complete judgment, but from what I've heard from more experienced editors, the editing on this music video is less hard and more incredibly time-consuming. The entire thing was apparently edited by one person and shows an increase in the group's production values since their debut. This song is also designed to convey the idea of insanity and brash confidence, which I think definitely comes across in the editing.
Drop it like hot, hot, hot. 어제 I'm feeling so hot. 이 노래 버리 like hot, 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 hot. 태양을 향해, 불의 향해, 불 붙여라 뜨거워 이 노래. Everybody 대장 뜻이 비치네. Yeah, 가슴은 뜨겁게 거짓말 없어 우리 확실해. 우리는 drop it like hot, 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 hot. 깊은 숲을 치고서 달려 위에 태양이야. 우린 through the fire 한결 다시 넘버. 어느새 우리 높이 올라가서 태양이 돼버릴 거야. 우리는 drop it like hot. 태양을 향해 불 붙여라 뜨거워.
Finally, a girl group, OO by NMIX. The song was controversial, but the editing of the music video was top-notch, making a lot of people come around to the questionable music. And if a music video has the power to make the music good, it's some very powerful editing. If you are looking for more well-edited, exciting, or generally visually interesting K-pop music videos, some that I really liked were Wadada by Kepler, basically any Stray Kids music video, Answer, Bouncy, and Say My Name by ATEEZ, Left and Right and Home Run by 17, pretty much any aespa video, but especially Black Mamba, Frost and Eternally by TXT, and Nerdy by Purple Kiss. Another interesting video is Dope by BTS, which is super low budget, but is really clever in its planning and setup, and is edited to look like it was all done in one take. In conclusion, good editing is good, and K-pop is the place to find good, polished editing on a regular basis. Something that was popularised primarily by EXO and BTS, but which certainly existed before them in K-pop, was the idea of groups having a storyline. Instead of one story per song, each song would contribute to an ongoing story, like a TV series. This was one technique to attract new fans and to market the genre on the global stage, and I think it worked. Out of the most popular groups right now, about half of them have storylines of some description, and a storyline can take a small group to massive success. ATEEZ's storyline massively helped them gain recognition and sales, along with their performance skill, but that's not the point of this segment. And it so happens that a lot of these storylines cater to my specific interests. A lot of them are about youth and growing up, mental health, friendship, self-harm, and more. I have 4 that I am particularly interested in at this point. ATEEZ's storyline is about them, pirates, trying to find their treasure, or their heart's desires, while battling a 1984-esque government and versions of themselves from other universes and timelines who may or may not be helping them. It focuses on ideas of regret, friendship, conflict, oppression, art, insanity, and grief. ENHYPEN's storyline is a bit different. The group are vampires, explored in a variety of contexts through their music videos, and they battle their Japanese brother group and team, who are werewolves. This duality is very fascinating, especially in relation to their themes of loss, desire, and youth. Just B's storyline is very small, considering the group is relatively unknown, but their storyline revolves around institutional oppression of the youth, especially through the blue pill, red pill pairing that has become so symbolic in the modern day. Their storyline also deals with time, corruption, mental health, and the butterfly effect. I want to give some honourable mentions now. EXO's storyline involves superpowers and time travel, which was pioneering for the concept of K-pop storylines. BTS, whose storyline is about loss, youth, time travel, acceptance and love of oneself, and friendship. Dreamcatcher, who rebranded and gained success with their storyline where each member is a specific demon hunting the audience. And Pink Fantasy, who have a similar concept. Purple Kiss have a vague storyline similar to Dreamcatcher and Monster High. And Luna are known for their complex storyline based on biblical and mythical concepts. Finally, I want to mention what is possibly my most favourite storyline in K-pop, battling for that position with ATEEZ and BTS. It's TXT's. TXT's storyline has several parts. They are boys who are growing up in a 21st century world, and they each have superpowers and curses, and they are dealing with the bliss and following pain of a codependent and toxic relationship. TXT's storyline has shown their progression from youth to adults, from children to self-loathing youths to friends, and from single to blissfully in a relationship to devastated at a breakup and vengeful in the fallout. Their storyline integrates themes of time, the butterfly effect, self-hatred, self-harm, suicidal ideation, friendship, betrayal, love, trauma, loss of identity, and more. It's wonderfully gothic, especially in art style, which has taken inspiration from classic films like Journey to the Moon. It's passionate and passionately driven by both the members and the creative team behind them. It includes serious and sensitive discussions of topics like mental health and self-harm, which are beautiful, emotional, and thought-provoking. It uses symbols, metaphors, colours, and performances to bring the audience into its world. A dual world of our own and a place literally called Magic Island, each world representing different themes and musical styles. It's hard to express the effort and care that has clearly gone into the creation of this storyline, down to the smallest details. The lyrics of many of their songs perfectly represent the self-doubt, hatred, loss of identity, and mix of other emotions that comes from the fallout of these events, especially self-harm and toxic relationships. Crown, Runaway, and Good Boy Gone Bad are songs that especially show this genius lyricism. They can be appreciated without any knowledge of the subject, but as a psychology student, I think that they need to be applauded for their almost pitch-perfect representation of those psychological states. And that's something that they are rarely, even never, recognised for. TXT are also known for their ridiculously long music videos, several of which stretch over the 10-minute mark. Their music video for Eternally was part music video, part hidden track release, part teaser for the coming albums, and part short film, exploring themes like conflict, death, loss, and acceptance of oneself. However, it's not the standout peak of their music video storytelling. That spot will always belong to Nap of a Star, which uses the art style of Journey to the Moon to explore the journey of a boy who is cursed and despised both by society and himself, running away and attempting suicide before finding a group of people who are cursed like him and ready to accept him. It's wonderfully made in every way, and I can't encourage you enough to watch it. I'll include a little snippet here. I am a huge fan of learning about different cultures and experiences, to the point that I wonder just how different my life would be if I lived in the house next door as opposed to the one I currently live in. So different countries and languages are wondrous for me. In both media and psychology, it is hugely important to recognise the importance of a multicultural and diverse humanity, and especially how important language is to shaping culture. I find K-pop fascinating partially as it is a combination of Korean language and culture and American. The interactions between these two origins are fascinating. But it's also, no matter how westernized, a bridge to the world of Korean culture, which itself is fascinating, rich, and long. But putting aside my love for language, myths, and history, and those dancing monster lion creatures that seem to appear in every traditional K-pop performance, Korea has something else fascinating going on for it, from a historiographical, psychological, and media-based perspective, the relationship between it and other countries. Of course, there are relationships like those between South Korea and America. They are both capitalistic countries and have a relationship both through trade and alliances. But those are pretty standard relationships that I don't find too interesting. No, the relationships I'm talking about are the tense ones South Korea has with countries around it, specifically in Asia, like Japan, China, Thailand, Vietnam, and especially North Korea. The first 4 countries have interesting relations with South Korea through their involvements in wars and other events. I especially find the post-World War II relationship between China, Japan, and South Korea very interesting, as the events of the war fostered a lot of hate, racism, and xenophobia between them. But the most interesting one is the relationship between North and South Korea. 2 countries that share a history and culture, but which have only relatively recently been separated, and with fascinating consequences. They've basically landed on opposite ends of the political scale, but with a surprising amount still in common. Notably that both countries are quite conservative and sexist. And the tensions between these countries, remember the Korean War is still technically ongoing, has had a massive impact on their cultures. They are 2 of the very few countries to still have mandatory military service, and each side is desperately throwing propaganda at the other side. A look at their own Wikipedia pages show that they each consider the other side to be a rebellious part of their own country. The idea that they both think very similarly, but in opposite directions, will forever fascinate me. There is no relationship between 2 other countries that is anything like the relationship between North and South Korea, and that's why it's so interesting. It's created media like Crash Landing on You, a cultural icon which has had a massive impact on the public media of both North and South, and which is so intrinsically linked to the Koreas that an American remake was shot down for that primary reason. Where in America could someone crash land that would have anywhere near the same weight and tension as a South Korean landing in North Korea? It's just a topic that I find very interesting for its effect on the people of the 2 countries and the world. Although my family think I have a death wish for wanting to go on holidays to North Korea, the history and relationship between the 2 countries is what makes that such an interest for me. I just think it's so interesting that this particular style of performance from this particular country has become so popular. And while I don't have the exact answers, and it's again something that definitely needs to be considered in its own separate video, it makes me ask many questions, like why it became so popular in America specifically, and how it appealed to Americans. And why have countries like Thailand, China, Japan, and Vietnam either created or altered systems to be so like the K-pop industry? Why haven't they got as popular? There are so many layers to K-pop and it intersects with so many areas. Culture, politics, media, psychology, language, criminology, etc. It has basically endless potential to be studied, a potential which has been sorely underexplored, especially in the English-speaking academic field. And that's one of the reasons I find it so interesting. There is so much for me to discover and learn, and if there's one thing I love, it's learning. This is one of the things that brings so many people into K-pop, especially into groups like BTS and 17. K-pop has a wide variety of humour, which is showcased through the reality shows that companies and groups run. They allow the artists to show off their real or created personalities and their humour and charm. Companies, groups, and fans work together in a well-oiled machine to pump out jokes and memes, and it's definitely worth the effort. I can't tell you the number of K-pop fans who say that they got into the genre purely because of a single BTS Funniest Moments compilation video. And those things are both questionable and pieces of art. Here are some of my favourite memes and clips from reality shows.
뚱뚱두둥둥뚱 나도 민기야! 뭐야 얘 나도 무서워 나 잠깐만 여기서 나의 얘기를 한번 들어봐봐 와 진짜 꼴보기 싫어 꼴보기 싫대
그러면은 더 극적일 때까지 간 다음에 그걸 했었어야 돼. 왜냐면 지금 2개 다 애매해졌어.
자 자 잠깐만. 자 춤으로 지금 채우고 있죠? 본 거야. 일단은 내가 쿱스 형을 좀 의심하고 있었어가지고. 야 나 진짜 명백하게 생각났어. 뭐? 저번에 우리 마피아 할 때 민규가 저번에 나랑 해가지고 그때 마피아가 아니었었잖아. 근데 제가 큰 활약을 했단 말이야. 그래서 제작진분들이 내가 봤을 때는 명분을 만든 거야. 쟤를 이번에 마피아에서 네가 성공해라 하고 어때?
그 추리인데 찾을 때도 그렇고 약간 맞는 것 같기도 해. 왜냐면은 내가
어떻게 진짜 딱 들어맞아 이게.
왜냐면 내가
이게
왜냐면 내가
들어맞고 있어요.
너지.
정말 아니야. 3번만 해줘.
진짜 잘한다.
나 진짜 진심이야 형. 제발.
오케이 가자. 오케이 민규.
나간다고? 너야.
다시 투표할 거야. 다시 투표.
진짜 이러지 마. 진짜 제발.
반론 듣지도 마.
아 진짜 제발 한 번만.
야 자기가 마피아 됐을 때 마피아가 저렇게 안 할 수 있어?
그래.
난 내가 마피아였어. 그렇지 뭐. 다 그래.
야 너 잘한다.
야 잘하네.
준경이 이랬었는데 왜 지금 와서 살려달라고 하는 거야? 그때 내가 룰을 몰랐잖아. 룰을 몰라서. 나 룰 몰랐어. 룰을 몰라.
네가 룰을 모른다고? 이 게임에 룰을 모르. 말이 안 되잖아.
그냥 마피아도 기분 나쁘겠다. 아 혼자 여기 앉아서 이제 투표해. 투표.
이분 왜 이렇게 이상해지고 왔어요?
지금부터 투표를 시작하겠습니다. 오케이 끝.
이게 너가 의심되는 게 아니라 호시가 너무 잘 설명해서
너무 일리가 있어.
자기 흥분을 잘한 거지 뭘 잘 설명한 건데.
나는 진짜 뚜렷한 확신이 있어. 그러니까 뚜렷한 확신이 있습니다고? 물증은 없지만 뚜렷한 확신이 있대. 나 지금 이 과정 속에서 이 녀석의 표정을 봤어. 내 표정을 안 봤는데 뭘 봤다네. 너 여쭤 보고 말했잖아. 거짓말 안 돼. 거짓말 안 돼. 거짓말. 민기 씨 카메라 등지지 마세요. 일로 오세요 빨리.
가자. 오케이 가자. 하나 둘 셋.
와 죽었다.
아 그냥 죽었네.
와 마피아?
마피아야.
어떻게 들어왔어?
후보에 6장이 저한테 있긴 했어요.
고조야? 바로 찰로 나죠?
연기 잘한다.
제가 말했잖아요. 이 사람이 6장이라고.
6장이 있긴 했어요. 근데 중요한 게 뭔지 알아요? 6장 이후로 진전이 없어요. 진전이 없어서.
이렇게 심리전을 쓰죠?
몇 장인데요? 그러면 남준이 거 몇 장이에요?
9장.
남준이네. 너 몇 장이 남자 너?
저 13장이요. 와, 이런다니까요.
와 9장이라며요. 형 거짓말하면 내가 아까 뭐라 했어요? 나쁜 사람이에요.
나 아까는 진짜 4장이었어. 자, 근데 내가 봐봐. 제이홉이 100% 나보다 논다.
사람 눈을 보고 이렇게 거짓말을
자,
하지.
들어보세요. 확신합니다.
그래.
대박이다. 진짜 대박이다. 와, 너 진짜 거짓말 잘 친다.
호병 하면.
아까 제가 깜짝 놀랐다고 했잖아요.
호병 여기 막 소름 돋는다 진짜. 내가 진짜 소름 돋는다. 봐봐.
진영 설마.
왜 나야?
제이요?
내가 말했는데.
11장.
야, 이 형 진짜.
11장이라면서요.
와, 재영. 당했구나. 아니, 6장이라네.
11장밖에 안 돼요?
이 형 은근 자기가 1등인 줄 알았어. 야, 모른다. 이제 봐봐. 이제 김태형 봐라. 자,
아니에요.
자, 여기서 크게 돼. 봐. 봐봐, 지금 표정 봐. 자, 이
자.
셋 중에 크게 돼인다 진짜.
자, 여러분 들어보세요.
휴가. 10장.
야, 진짜. 야,
왜?
형, 야, 연기하자. 이제 스카이트 가라.
선생님.
자, 여기서 1등 태형이다.
자, 전국 제일 것 같아.
10.
야,
역시 연막 작전이었어.
근데 그거 알아? 야, 근데 1등은 얘인 것 같아.
아니에요. 나 진짜 나 14장이에요.
자, 김태형 16장 봅니다.
나 14장이에요.
자, 조용.
16장이요. 정답. 내가 말했잖아, 연막 작전이라고. 여러분!
소름 돋는다.
와 16장?
지민 18.
진짜?
잠깐만.
야, 18장 먹고 여기 와서 쉬고 있었네.
형, 잠깐만. 나 잘못한 거. 1등을.
아 까비.
이거 반전 용어 아니야?
오늘의 반전은
진영 아니야, 진영?
통장이죠? 통장.
아, 에이. 아, 설마 진짜?
21.
와 나 내가 1등인 줄 알았어. 등에 몇 개를 붙인 거야?
점점 더 멀어지나 봐 걷고 있는 날 점점
아 이거 큰일 났네. 이거 뭐 알았어. 근데 괜찮으세요?
잠깐, 나도.
내 등에 몇 개나 붙었냐? 보여주면 안 되냐?
8개.
8개나 붙었어? 아무것도 안 했는데 나? 아
야 근데 너 이거 이렇게 싹 붙여야 된다. 지민이 잡으러 갑시다.
너 앞에 가.
그래.
저 슈가요.
RM 진영이 형.
정확하죠?
단.
야, 태원, 너는 왜 나 잡으러 오지도 않냐?
예? 아 나도 단어 만들다가 실패해가지고.
스티커의 개수를 해서 승패를 가는 거예요.
아니 못 살리.
진실을 붙인 사람이 1등을 했는데
지민이를 붙인 사람
정렬이지.
진 씨라고
예.
누군데요?
이거 만약에 나 이때까지 진영이라고 생각하고 태영이한테 등을 내줬었거든요. 근데 이거 김태형이지? 진짜 절교다 오늘. 진짜 이거 바로 끊어라 와서.
기읒, 절교.
근데 진짜 나 그러면은 내가 붙일 사람 되게 많아. 나 윤경도 붙였어야 됐고 너도
아니야,
붙였어야 됐고.
태영이는 나를 찾질 않았어. 나 아닌가 봐.
아니야 얘 내 옆에 계속 있었거든요.
그럼
만약에
뭐해?
진영이면 그냥 진영 싫어할 건데.
지민이는 B를. 그럼 똑같은 거 아니야?
네 진영이야.
야, 너 절견다 오늘. 너 진짜 나 오늘 볼 생각 하지 마. 방송 끝나는 대로 너도 끝이다. 알겠냐?
오늘의 승자는
김태형.
와, 저런 탈락하고 김태형 거야.
솔직히 이거 형 때문이에요.
그럼 내가 태형이 도와준 거야?
그럼 계속 도와줬죠. 와가지고 계속
바로 차고
등 계속 치고 가는 거예요. 계속. 너무 짜증나게 계속.
딱히 진영. 간다. 대박이다. 야,
야, 태형 아니었지만 빛을 발하네요.
자,
소감 한마디 해주시죠, 태형 씨. 태형 씨, 1등 하셨는데.
저 한마디 해주세요. 자,
네. 자 멤버들 따라오십시오. 왜 이렇게 못합니까? 다음에는 정말 내가
미쁘게 뜻이 뭐였지? 미쁘게?
저는 저 인형을 해볼까. 하지만 다 내가 너무 아끼는 친구들이라 주기는 싫고.
나는 국민종이야.
제일 만만한 건 인형입니다. 인형 중에
I'm in Washington, in America. We're on tour. 저는 지금 워싱턴이에요. 미국 워싱턴, the capital of America. The big guns. Oh god. Anyway, yeah, I'm here. And my question for you is, do you think that murder is excusable if the victim sucks? And I mean really sucks, because I'm just curious. Wow, a lot of you guys are saying yes, which I'm kind of surprised on. Oh, is that? No. So my question is, do you think it's ever excusable? And I'm not talking about self-defense, because that's a different story. Because, to be honest, for me, I would never do it. Oh, I'm not gonna go on a live and say, yes, I will do it. Obviously, I'm not gonna say that. But I can also, like, be empathetic. Wow, not me admitting on live that I might murder someone. No, but like, I'm obviously like, no, probably not, right? I would never do that, but low-key I would do it. Oh, girl, come on.
글쎄요, 아무리 찾아도 없는데. 아니, 두 분이서 이렇게 개인기를 또 하나 하면은 어디 있어요? 열쇠 어디 있어요? 네, 제가 안무를 알려드리겠습니다, 형님. 후렴이 left and right 이런데 이제 후추를 이렇게 뿌려주시면 돼요. 후추나 뭐 소금, 왼손부터 한 번, 두 번 내려오고 오른손으로 한 번, 두 번 올라오면 돼요. 그리고 리듬. 너무 잘하는데? 5, 6, 7, 8. Left and right, left and right. 네, 좋습니다. 이게 참 열쇠가 그게 이제 들어가겠습니다. 가겠습니다.
배신자야.
안녕하세요. 있어요? 안녕하세요. 그러니까 제가 키 찾으면 되는 거잖아. 그쵸? 솔직히 아까 놀랬죠? 그쵸? 키를 찾아야 되잖아. 잠깐만, 키는 어떻게 생겼지? 키 어디 있어요? 조한이요? 키는 어디 있어?
근데 명호 패키니즈?
페니와이즈.
패키니즈. 그놈의 패키니즈 뭐야?
그 삐에로랑 같이 다니는데? 옆에?
그 정도면 안 되는데?
같이 걸어 다녀.
아이. 제가 뭐 해드릴까요? 제가 뭐 해드리고 키만 내가 하는 척 하면서 이제 그 키를 찾는 거죠. 키 한 번만 찾아주세요. 잠깐만요. 어디요? 좀 남자 3명, 나 1명. 그쵸?
리더가 의심스러운 멤버들.
ATG의 리더는 얼마나 고된 일인가요?
고되지 않습니다.
곧 울 것만 같다.
많은 분들이 ATG 리더가 되게 고될 거라고 생각하는데 처음부터 마음을 놓고 저 친구들이 정신 연령, 평균 연령이 5살이라고 생각을 하고 시작을 하면 어려울 게 없습니다. 나 집에 갈래요.
거의 오자마자 다시 돌아가고 싶어 하셨잖아요.
그건 유치원 선생님들도 같은 마음이시지 않을까요?
우참 대결로 변질됐다.
뒤에 한번 보시겠어요?
차라리 자고 있는 게 마음 편합니다. 아기들이 자고 있을 때 가장 예쁘다는 얘기가 있어요. 아니 맞추면 아웃이라길래 감정 싫은 거 아니에요? 아 미안합니다. 와. 아 우리다. 뭐야? 우와. 멋있어. 우와. 멋있어. 귀여워. 갑니다. 아웃. 죄송합니다. 파울. 글쎄요. 글쎄 뭐해? 왜 뭐가 문제야? 나 비니 떨어졌어. 비니 떨어졌어?
야 우리 공룡 너무 귀여워. 하물며 여긴 육식인 여기 초식이야.
에이 투수한테 너무 가혹한 거 아닙니까? 지금 포볼 돼서 진로해도 돼 디노야. 투수 바꿔야 될 것 같은데. 야 이거 투수한테 시켜. 야 쿱스 형 공룡 잘 시켰다. 투수 잘 시켰다. 형, 야 우리 공룡 싸움 간다. 야 공룡. 야 공룡 대 공룡 간다. 와 가자. 바로 쳤나? 오! 오! 좋아! 멋있어! 너무 멋있다. 야 달리는 거 멋있어. 트랙. 아 오랜만에 너무 짜증나 진짜. 야. 이거 죽어. 진짜 죽어. 이거 진짜 죽어. 진짜.
The last clip is from Going 17, the reality show starring, well, 17. It's well known for being the most popular K-pop reality show, arguably only behind BTS's show Run BTS. And as I said earlier, this was the kind of thing that helped me get through my final exams. The editing, situations, and members are carefully orchestrated for maximum funny moments and entertainment, and it takes a genius to run a program as top-notch as this one. The fact that there are episodes that both my mother, several generations removed from myself and K-pop, and with no understanding of K-pop and the Korean language, and myself can watch together and enjoy, says something about how good these shows are. And speaking of, it's important to mention the heavy load pulled in these shows by the editors. Their quips at the members and the audience, their own admissions of liking different members or groups, jokes and references, and more, are some of the reasons these shows are so popular. At first glance, the editing seems trash. They've just stuck some stock images on the idols and couldn't refrain from adding their own comments to the idols' content. But once you've adjusted to the concept, it becomes clear that not only was this seeming tackiness intentional, it was also done with the greatest skill and effort. The best graphics are picked for the best situations, and the editing manages to look both meticulously planned and done in 3 minutes at the same time. My respect for these editors and how hard they work to make each episode as funny as possible is immense. K-pop isn't a genre, it's an industry. Many people have tried to define it as a genre. Oh, it's pop music in Korean. Well, no, a good chunk of it isn't actually pop music. Oh, well then it must be the music that's popular in Korea. But you'd be surprised how little popularity it has in its own country. Well, what the hell is it then? Why is it called K-pop? A more accurate term would be K-idol music. Idol music is the highly produced, choreographed performance style that originates in places like Japan, involving highly trained artists who excel at everything, are ridiculously gorgeous, flawless, and generally unattainable. Thus, idols. They are run by companies and have a huge team behind them. Idol music exists in every country, it just so happens that K-pop is the most popular industry right now. But idol music isn't restricted to a genre, instead to a performance and production style. This means that idol music, and especially K-pop, covers a huge number of genres. Rock, punk, folk, traditional, bass, metal, electronic, house, ballad, rap, hip-hop. You name it, there's at least one K-pop song in that genre, down to super specific details like electronic dance house rap. What even is that genre? I have no clue, but there's a K-pop song that fits it, and that song is probably something by ATEEZ or Stray Kids. It's interesting that in the process of becoming interested in K-pop, I expanded my listening of music. Previously, I only listened to traditional musical instruments and electronic house. But now I listen to a huge variety of music, despite K-pop often being considered an industry with very samey sounding songs. If you're a K-pop fan, you will always be fed with new content. The benefit of the idol industry is having a huge group of staff behind a single group, and these staff are busy pumping out content on every aspect of the idol's life, and of course, monetizing that content. There are multiple subscription platforms you can join to get extra content or for the chance of talking to your favorite idol. There are behind the scenes contents, dance practices with moving and still cameras, in and out of costume, new ones for remixes and concert performances, cover performances, live streams by artists, new albums preferably twice a year, reality shows, paid content, concerts, and more. Although all artists put out way more content than I could either follow or be bothered to list, the kings of content are BTS, who have probably hundreds of thousands of hours of content only through their official channels. It's one of the things that have allowed them to grow so big. The fans could see every part of their life through so much content and thus feel so close to the members that they'll become even more dedicated. And, speaking of dedication, let's talk about parasocial relationships. Parasocial relationships are relationships where one party isn't aware of the other party's existence. As much as society may look down on women and specifically teenage girls for their parasocial relationships, we all exist in these relationships. You have a parasocial relationship with your favourite athlete, your favourite TV personality, your favourite artist, or even your local politician. Parasocial relationships allow one party to put in much less effort and get much more out of their fans in return. They create a false sense of closeness and familiarity, and this sense is one that is essential to humans. Since we are more likely to support and help those we feel close to, we are thus more likely to put more effort into these parasocial relationships, which is how the figure of attention gets the money or whatever else they need. And K-pop has perfected parasocial relationships. From ridiculous amounts of content, making fans feel a connection, to constantly thanking them and addressing them by name, reading and responding to comments, subscription services, fan meetings, and more, idols and their activities are designed to make the audience feel as close to the artist as possible, and thus more likely to support them. This is another reason BTS became so popular. Their huge amount of content grew an extremely close parasocial relationship with their fans, who have become almost fanatical in helping their favourite group grow. Parasocial relationships have been a key aspect of boy bands especially since forever. These techniques can be seen in groups like the Beatles and One Direction, but I think BTS have perfected the formula, or at least come as close as they could to perfecting it. The cost? Oh, just the members' privacy for the rest of their lives. To a corporation looking for money and a group of youths with a dream, that may not seem like much, but as we'll discuss in later episodes, it may have an even greater impact than many think. Parasocial relationships are big in both media and psychology, and, as two of my areas of interest, I am fascinated by them and how integral they are to K-pop, even more so than to other music and entertainment industries, which is why it is one of the reasons I follow K-pop. Obviously, I don't want to be involved in the mistreatment of artists and staff that continually goes on, but the idea that I could be involved in the creative team behind some of these performances is one that is too good to pass down. Although almost all performances are wonderfully put together, standout ones are the ones performed on shows like Kingdom and Queendom, or award show performances. These performances are supposed to be opulent, dramatic, and attract new fans while amazing the current ones so much that they'll stick with the group forever. And the biggest king of award show performances? Well, sorry to keep talking about them, but they have the budget for it now. It's BTS at the 2019 MMAs. This performance was dripping in, that's right, we're the most popular group in the world right now, and that's right, we're rich energy. While most award show performances are between 3 and 15 minutes, this one went on for a whopping almost 40 minutes, taking the audience through the journey of BTS's 7 years since debut. I guess BTS were just in a nostalgic mode in 2019 and 2020. The performance featured several songs from their new album, both hype ones and calming ballads, and included a performance of an old song, Boy in Love, which was used to demonstrate the mirroring and cyclical nature of BTS's new album series, Map of the Soul. The performance teased the upcoming album for their 7-year anniversary and its concept in Jungian and Freudian psychology. But that was only the first half of the performance. The second half of the performance centered around their new song Dionysus, a song full of confidence and which screams, "That's right, we are gods of music." As expected, the performance cast each of the members as a specific Greek god, each with a solo performance which matched their god's concept and which included a song from BTS's long past. As the 7 gods converge, the stage is lit up with all of the wealth and opulence that BTS have amassed, despite the struggles the industry has created for them. Not only does it turn into an actual pantheon, but we can now see that no expenses were spared. There are acrobats, dancers, massive banquet tables, musicians and muses, beautiful women and flower girls, and an entire army of BTS followers. Yes, army pun intended. And this army bring with them a whole herd of horses. I kid you not, BTS brought horses onto the stage just to show their power and wealth. Damn. And then they actually perform the song, which is always a delight. But it's only the finale to this massive performance which showed so much care, passion, and effort. And that passion comes out loud and clear in the heavy breathing of the members we hear at the end of the performance. That's right, that whole performance was live. It's got some great production values, and I can really appreciate that. I don't have a lot to say about this. I like fashion. I find it interesting. I used to want to be a fashion designer, and I still wouldn't complain if that's where I ended up. And K-pop has such an interesting blend of fashion from different countries, decades, and genres. They'll mix daggy clothes with golden chains and jewels, or the tackiest pieces will be done up to such an extent that they've come out on the other side and are also understated. The fashion of K-pop is unique and fascinating, and again makes me want to draw it, which is always a good thing for an artist to want to do. Not to mention the importance of the impact it has. These fashions take pride in often breaking gender boundaries, and that's something that I think we need more of in the modern world. I'm also a big fan of the embellishments in Hongjoong's mullet, one of the most iconic mullets in the industry. Also, don't have a lot to say about this one. Idols are hand-picked for their appearance and their conformity to both Korean and Western beauty standards. And as much as we can try to deny that we are swayed by appearance or say that we aren't so shallow, it shows time and time again that we as humans are attracted to people who look good. And that's not a bad thing. It only becomes bad when we discriminate against people we see as ugly. Not only are the pretty people in the industry a huge reason that so many people around the world like K-pop, it's also a reason I like K-pop, and I'm not upset to admit it. I find tons of muses for artworks in K-pop, and even if that wasn't the case, no one's ever complained about looking at a pretty face. I also love the makeup, which is designed for maximum beauty and which does a great job of it. It's always nice to see your country represented in popular media. That's one of the reasons Wolverine and Thor were up on my list of favourite superheroes, even though I dislike the actual characters. I just wanted to see the Aussies in more films. And partially because it's based in Oceania, and partially because of the large Korean and Asian diaspora in Australia, there's a decent number of Australian idols, most notably Chan and Felix from Stray Kids. It's one of the reasons that many groups, specifically Stray Kids, are so popular in Australia. We just like seeing people who speak the same language as us and who grew up in the same area as us. Felix's school is only a few kilometres from my house, and I think I speak for most Australian fans, but especially Sydney ones, when I say that I love seeing them talk about their hometown, and making references to the unique culture of Sydney which I can understand because they are my lived experience. They embrace their Australian culture and introduce it to more people, while embracing their Korean culture as well. It's wonderful, especially to see the connections that diaspora retain to their ancestors' culture, country, and language. It makes me feel proud of my country, which I don't often have cause to feel proud of, and excited to learn more about Korea at the same time. Positive vibes all around. Of course, there are exceptions, but the vast majority of staff behind K-pop groups have demonstrated time and time again how passionate they are. They've missed wages, spent sleepless nights, gone hungry and more to help their groups and projects succeed. And this isn't to say that they should have to do those things, rather that it shows how passionate they are. With every performance I watch, I grow in fondness for the staff that made it happen. In fact, I may even like the staff more than the groups in some cases. I'm an especially big fan of live translators. That particular group of people can have my heart forever. Learning languages can be difficult, as is translating and live subtitling. These people have to do all of these things and more, and they do it live, just so that more people can access the groups that they like and to bridge the language barrier. It's another thing that makes me want to be working behind the scenes to create something full of passion. As I mentioned earlier, K-pop is a little explored area in media and psychology in the West, and even less so in historiography. It holds so much untapped knowledge and potential, and thus holds endless interest to me. There's a reason I can't just shorten my list of reasons to 2 or 3, and even making the list this short was a bit of a difficulty. There are just so many aspects to the industry which are so unique and yet somehow work. There are so many layers, so many different experiences, so many opposites and similarities, and this podcast will hope to tap into even the tiniest fraction of many of those topics. And with that, I'm finally done with my list. The TLDW? K-pop hits almost every one of my interests. It has so much untapped potential as an object of research, and with so many varying experiences, has so much to explore. It's so unique in the world, yet so similar to other industries. So why did this one in particular become so popular? Where could it go in the future? How did we get to this point? How does K-pop shape our perceptions of the world and ourselves? Is it a good or bad phenomenon? And more. So many questions, so much fascination. Thank you for listening to this point. I'd love to hear if any of the reasons I highlighted today surprised you or are ones you agree or disagree with. Links to all of the sources used and performances shown will be in the description, and I will leave you with a picture of Hoshi becoming his true tiger self. But that concludes today's episode. Thanks for watching. I hope you've learned something, and I'll see you next time.